Okay, let's have a look at some news stories and let's look into Rocky 4 a bit more. So we have Rishi Sunak, and he says that he is open to welcoming Boris Johnson back into his cabinet. Boris Johnson, I believe, is still the Prime Minister. He's just had a break. He was the 77th Prime Minister, so that's 7/7/14. He resigned on 7/7, and he was the 14th under Queen Elizabeth II, Churchill I. Boris Johnson wrote a book called The Churchill Factor. 5 years ago, I predicted everything that was going on with Boris Johnson, because I saw a photo of him with Jacob Redshield, Boris's Bullingdon Club like David Cameron, and I saw his book, The Churchill Factor. They were building him up to be Churchill, and they're going to bring him back. So Rishi Sunak has indicated that Boris will come back into his cabinet. He is the Chamberlain figure. Jennifer Curry, Boris's ex-girlfriend, also has said that Boris will come back. They're organising everything so that Boris comes back. The Churchill Factor. Now, I got an interesting comment from William, son of Laren, and we have this quote on iPet Goat 2. So iPet Goat 2 has returned, Helio font, with this quote, "The fire in the heart of suffering." And let's relate it to Rocky 4. Now, Rocky 4 was made in 1985. It predicts the end of the Cold War. It also has a robot in it as well. We have just had the death of Apollo Creed, age 76. A song on the soundtrack of Rocky 4 was Hearts on Fire, so similar to the iPet Goat 2 quote. It reached 76 in the Billboard charts, 76 out of 100. Now, as I've said in the film, Apollo Creed, Apollo the sun god, is killed by Drago, Ivan Drago the dragon. And then Rocky, who is Christ, defeats Drago. It seems to relate to La Palma, where the Rock of La Palma will defeat the dragon. St. Michael of the Palm is the name of La Palma. The Rosicrucians believe St. Michael and St. George are the same character. St. Michael the divine, St. George the earthly. We had the emergency alert on St. George's Day. We also had William Shakespeare. He was born and died on that day. First man to get it was called William Shakespeare. The Tsar was from Stratford-upon-Avon. You shake it before you spear it. Now, Hearts on Fire was used on Rocky 4, and we will see that Rocky trains with rocks, and the rocks fall. This seems to indicate some kind of meteor event, or La Palma, or maybe both. So the huge rocks fall. Remember, he defeats Drago with being Rocky. So you see the rocks there fall. And you will see that Ivan Drago is on drugs and he's using a syringe. From William Shakespeare. Okay? So he's injecting himself with drugs. Ivan Drago. There you go. William Shakespeare. Then Rocky goes to the top of the hill, like Christ, and he shouts, "Drago, dragon." So you have Christ and Satan on the top of the mountain, the temptation of Christ. Okay? And he shouts, "Dragon, Rocky," and he's on top of a mountain. Remember, we have La Palma Cumbre Vieja, which is a volcano. If it falls into the sea, it will create a mega tsunami. iPet Goat 2 seems to indicate something happening in February, around the time of the Super Bowl. So it's clear that you have Rocky there being Christ and using rocks to defeat Drago. Apollo Creed arrives in front of Molech, living in America, and it shows America as Babylon, and he dies. Apollo Creed dies, so America will fall. So he dies, Apollo Creed, the sun god, and then Rocky defeats Drago, the serpent, and then he avenges the defeat of the sun god. Notice that you have also films where you have his son called Creed, which shows you the son reborn again. So we have the death of Apollo, and he looks like Christ, and the acting is appalling by Dolph Lundgren. He dies, he dies. So you can see there that Apollo looks like the dead Christ, and he avenges the sun god in the film. We have a robot called Sicko, and what we notice about this robot, remember this is in 1985, that this robot has an all-seeing eye in the middle of his head, which is a light, Lucifer. Okay, now at the end of the film we have Sylvester Stallone's speech, Adrian! No, he ends the Cold War. Sylvester Stallone ends the Cold War years before it actually happens.
If I can change, and you can change, everybody can change.
So I hope that shows you how Rocky IV, the plot line is that he is like a Christ-type figure who avenges the sun god and defeats the dragon. I believe it's connected to La Palma or some kind of meteor event involving rocks. What they seem to be saying is that a rock, which is also symbolic of Christ, and St. Michael and St. George slaying the serpent, La Palma, will slay the dragon. Now, in the news, we had this story in which the white horse, which led the funeral procession of the Queen, died. The white horse, called Aurora, died aged 13. Again, we have that number 13, that Masonic number, which is also connected to Diana. Now, remember that the Queen's funeral was 1 year to the exact day of the La Palma eruption, which was on the 19th. A year later, the Queen's funeral was on that day. Also remember that La Palma, the earthquake swarm started on 9/11. 9/11 is actually 7/11, it's a warning of the flood. Now, why this white horse story is very important, because it relates to Prince William, who seems to be the Masonic messianic figure, as Diana, his mother, was Isis, and he was born of cesarean birth when the sun was most high. I believe this is all a construct, and that they want to build a new age, and they're going by the Book of Revelation and by plays of Shakespeare. I believe it's the Rosicrucians and the Kabbalistic secret societies who are behind this. So the white horse, which is in the Book of Revelation, can be interpreted either as Christ or the Antichrist. And we have William, who looks like he will be king soon. Now, will William be king at the time of the eclipse? Lord of the Rings, as he was born when the sun was most high in the summer solstice. And in the eclipse, you have a dialectic between the moon and the sun, and they come together in synthesis, which is Isis, the synthesis of the two. Thank you.